Hello there, gang, and welcome to another episode of Displaying-Model-Behaviour, the Earth's mightiest video podcast. And today we're going to be learning all about the X-Men mutant-hating villain, Bastion. Now, this pink and black bad guy is currently tearing things up in X-Men 97, and I know a lot of people are asking, who is this Bastion who's causing all the ruckus? Well, we're going to find out right now. Bastion was originally created by comic book writer Scott Lobdell. Is it Lobdell? That is how you pronounce his name, isn't it? And artist Pascal Ferry in the mid-90s. I will get more specific. He first made a sneaky little cameo in X-Men number 52, and then had his full appearance in Uncanny X-Men 433. He was introduced in the aftermath of the Onslaught saga, so Professor X had handed himself over to the government, and anti-mutant hysteria was at an all-time high, because they had just lost all of their heroes at the hands of, technically, Professor X and Magneto. So the optics on that were really bad. So the character Sebastian Gilberti, I think that's his name. I keep thinking Glenn Gilberti, it's my wrestling brain taking over. But Sebastian Gilberti is introduced as this high-ranking government officer who's in charge of this new program called Operation Zero Tolerance. And also, I gotta say, that's just a badass name. Operation Zero Tolerance. Like, you know it's about to go down. So Bastion kind of took the role of your classic anti-mutant activist, who we've seen plenty of times before with Graydon Creed and the Friends of Humanity, but this guy, he's just a little different. You see, before Operation Zero Tolerance was launched in America, the X-Men did kind of get wave that something was happening. So Gambit and Phoenix went to infiltrate this army base, government building to find out what was going on. This was Uncanny X-Men 333 from summer, I think, of 1996, and this is where we first get introduced properly to Bastion. And things instantly seem a little bit rotten in Denmark when Phoenix tries to read Bastion's mind, and guess what? She gets nothing. And not only can one of the most powerful telepaths in the world not read Bastion's mind, but he flexes quite hard by just going, "Oh hey lads, couple of mutants over there." Now, unfortunately, even though Charles Xavier did the right thing by handing himself over to the government in the wake of Onslaught, unfortunately, the person in charge of Xavier's incarceration was Bastion, and he is going to take full advantage of having Professor X at his mercy. Now, the first thing he does is go straight to Xavier's hard drive, and he's not going to look at his browsing history. Instead, he's going to open up the Xavier Protocols, which essentially is a how-to book for murdering the X-Men. Xavier must have probably been having a bit of a dark day, and he thought to himself, what happens if any of us mutants, including myself, go rogue? And he just lays out an A to Z guide of how to take out any of the X-Men. Bastion also proves that he's not going to be playing by good guy rules when he murders a Daily Bugle reporter who was going to expose the fact that presidential candidate Graydon Creed was in fact the son of Sabretooth. Honestly, with politics these days, I think they could have revealed that and people would have still voted for him. But arguably, Bastion's pièce de la résistance was creating the Prime Sentinels, human beings who have nanites and microscopic technology implanted inside them, which can basically turn them into Terminator-style Sentinels at any point, even unbeknownst to them, and then they're fully under Bastion's control. That's some dark sci-fi stuff there, and it's kind of cool. Now, Bastion's got all of his little playing pieces in place, and all he needs is that spark to reignite big-time anti-mutant hysteria, and he gets it with the assassination of the aforementioned presidential candidate, Graydon Creed. That guy gets iced, and then all of a sudden, it's time for Operation Zero Tolerance.
Model Behavior will return after these messages.
Folks, I'd like to take a quick break from this video, take a little pause for the cause to tell you about our channel sponsor, Into the AM. Not only did they provide me with this and many other badass looking graphic t-shirts, but they're also dressing my down belows as well with their all-day pants. I say pants in an American fashion because otherwise it would be trousers. But the all-day pants, genuinely, hand on heart, and I'm not just saying this, they're my favorite pair of pants right now because they're so comfortable. You can imagine being the greatest YouTuber ever I get a lot of people coming for me. I gotta be battle ready at all times. So I can't be wearing tight and restrictive pants that stop me from being able to defend myself at any moment. Luckily, these all-day pants are not only very smart and formal looking, but they're super stretchy. I can have a full-on high-kicking ninja battle wearing these things and then still go and play a round of golf. That's why I love my Into the AM all-day pants. Genuinely, I couldn't give them a higher recommendation, but I will do because I've got a bit more time. Go click the link in the description below and you can get 10% off your order along with all the different discounts and bundle deals that they're already doing. And plus, you know that you're helping out Model Behaviour because they're going to see that you do that and go, hey, you know what? The Model Behaviour viewers must be some darn well-dressed folks because they're buying our products. We're going to keep on sponsoring his show. So yeah, go check out the all-day pants because genuinely, I wouldn't back a product that I wasn't already a fan of. And these, like I say, they're my new favorite pair of pants. I'm going to be rocking these all summer long, baby. So gang, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for checking out Into the AM. And now, as they always say, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
And now we return to Model Behavior.
Now, even with Operation Zero Tolerance in full swing, Bastion still has a problem with J. Jonah Jameson, and I love this little character moment for JJ, because Bastion confronts him at the Bugle and says, okay, you need to start printing the right things that I want you to, and there are some threats, money, and coercion involved. And JJ just turns to him and he says, well, guess what? Someone murdered one of my reporters, and I can't help but think it has something to do with you. So guess what? I'm not going to sit back and take your bullying tactics. Let me just burn all this stuff you're bringing me, and I'm going to get to the bottom of this. J. Jonah Jameson, what a baller. Fortunately for the mutants, Operation Zero Tolerance came to a rather quick ending when it was revealed to the public what the Prime Sentinels were and how twisted and evil Bastion's machinations had become. So even though it had a big impact and a lot of mutants were captured, it ultimately didn't actually last for very long. So with Bastion's evil doing revealed, Senator Robert Kelly put out a warrant for his arrest. Kelly is always kind of cool. He's like the good guy in the government for the mutants, even though it's not always black and white and there's a lot of nuance to it. And it didn't take long for the government to catch up with Bastion and capture him before handing him over to S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, Bastion quite quickly breaks out of his incarceration and he returns back to the home where he was raised so that he can see his adopted mother, and this is where we get way more information on the Big Purple guy's backstory. So further to his mysterious past, we do find out that Bastion was adopted and named Sebastian by his mother. And unfortunately, she gets killed in the crossfire when the authorities turn up to capture him. And if he wasn't already out for blood, well, this was it now. So he makes his way back to the Operation Zero Tolerance staging base. And this is where Bastion gets really souped up, because in order to make the Prime Sentinels, they had this master mold unit that was producing them and creating the powers and the physics and all that jazz, and Bastion essentially absorbs the power and the energy of master mold, turning him into something completely brand new. So this new form of Bastion is essentially Nimrod, because Nimrod, of course, which is a whole other video, is this Super Sentinel master mold hybrid from the future, and that's essentially what Bastion has turned himself into. And by doing this, he's also unlocked a whole bunch of his memories, so we find out even more of his childhood backstory. And I say childhood loosely because it's revealed that Bastion was never actually a child. He was always an amalgamation of Nimrod and Master Mold. So before becoming a part of the government, Bastion was actually working as a construction worker, and it was in doing this that he unearthed a Master Mold module. And once this Nimrod Bastion made contact with the Master Mold, then the Master Mold began to take on his programming and his directives. Now this is where my knowledge gets a little bit spotty, unlike the perfectly researched bits you've heard before. But this Bastion Master Mold hybrid goes through this portal called the Siege Perilous. And this thing kind of converts the two entities that are in this body into one new creation. And that is the pink-skinned Bastion that we're more familiar with, and the same one that turns up at the house of Miss Gilberti, who's the lady that adopts him. I know, it's confusing. It's time travel. I hate time travel. So Bastion doesn't have any of his past memories, so he's kind of raised from scratch by Miss Gilberti. However, as soon as he hears about mutant news stories and the hysteria, it essentially triggers his master mold anti-mutant programming in his head. So not being able to resist this anti-mutant hysteria and hatred inside him, he leaves his adopted mother and begins to ingratiate himself with anti-mutant groups such as Graydon Creed and the Friends of Humanity. So now focused on his anti-mutant agenda, Bastion, now kind of embracing his Sentinel heritage, I suppose you could call it, he has a little arc with Machine Man, where he attempts to convert Machine Man into a Supreme Sentinel, which of course we all know is a Sentinel with cheese and tomato. Luckily, Cable puts a stop to that, and Bastion is reapprehended by the government. Now, Bastion doesn't remain in custody for long because he has a run-in with Wolverine, and unfortunately for him, this ain't your daddy's Wolverine. Nah, this is Horseman of Death Wolverine, which is another story that, I don't know, maybe we'll cover one day, but Wolverine was working as one of Apocalypse's horsemen, and he, bump, that's the noise you make when you behead someone. In case you didn't know that, anyone ever gets beheaded in a comic, you can read it as bump. You heard it here first. But as we all know, you can't keep a good bad guy down, and the remains of Bastion were found by a character called Mainspring, who was a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent in charge of a project called the Gatekeepers. And to the surprise of absolutely no one, after rebuilding Bastion and giving him a nice new body, he instantly turns against them and goes rogue, goes into business for himself, and even renames and rechristens himself as Template. Template, if you're British. Now, Carol Danvers, kind of randomly, she contacts the X-Men and says, hey, do you know about Bastion? You know what's going on? There's stuff happening. And the X-Men go and investigate, mainly Gambit, Wolverine, and Shadowcat. And it's when they go to retrieve, for a start, some of the Xavier Protocol files, that's one thing they want back, they get confronted by Bastion, or Template, or Template, depending on where you're from. Fortunately, as the X-Men always do, they get the upper hand, they win the day, they get the files back, and Bastion is thwarted. But that's not the end of his story. In fact, it gets a lot better. Move forward to Uncanny X-Force, and we get the Purifiers, who are, again, another anti-mutant team. And their plan was to reacquire the head of Bastion that they knew was stored there and attach it to Nimrod's body, thus giving themselves the ultimate anti-mutant weapon. Now, Bastion, being of a computer mind, calculates to himself that the X-Men are actually unbeatable, at least with the resources he has on Earth. So what he does is he looks out to the stars and he contacts the Magus, or at least an offspring of the Magus, who he thinks he can use and recruit and utilize to take out the X-Men. Not only that, but he decides to bolster his ranks a little bit by not just recruiting some of the X-Men's worst villains, but resurrecting ones that were already dead and amplifying them with Prime Sentinel technology. He's going all in with this. Now, he might have a lot of soldiers in his arsenal, but Bastion still needs to turn more public opinion against the mutants, and one way he does that is capturing a whole bunch of pretty innocent mutants and then injecting them with the legacy virus, which drives them insane and just releases them to the public. So of course the optics are not going to look good when a whole bunch of mutants run amok through New York City, and guess what? They don't. And all of a sudden the government makes a new anti-mutant task force, and guess who's in charge of it? Bastion goes on to form what becomes known as the Human High Council, which is just the collection of the worst of humanity who hate mutants. So Graydon Creed, Bolivar Trask, Stryker, all these people who just want to see the end of mutants. And there's one character that they are after in particular, who is Hope Summers, who is considered the messiah of the mutant race. Now, Bastion was pretty brutal in his pursuit of Hope Summers, and even though he did fail in capturing her, that was only because one X-Man had to lay down their lives, and in this case, it was Nightcrawler who made the supreme sacrifice to save Hope Summers. And of course, it's X-Men, so of course he comes back. Nonetheless though, Bastion's thwarted for the meantime, but don't think our boy doesn't have a backup plan. Bastion is able to create this crazy kind of energy dome that encompasses and encapsulates the X-Men and a whole bunch of other mutants, and then releases through a portal a whole bunch of Nimrods. So it's kind of like a meat grinder. It doesn't look good. Now Cable decides that the one solution to this is time travel. It's always time travel. Time travel is what got us in this situation. Nonetheless though, he wants to go into the future in order to destroy the Master Mold that is sending the Nimrods back to the past. It does make sense if you think about it, and then it stops making sense if you continue to think about it. I try not to think about it at all. Nonetheless though, Cable in his heroic act is actually killed, and what this does is it triggers the latent power inside Hope Summers. So even though we do lose Cable, you know, for a cup of coffee, we do get a fully powered Hope Summers who just blasts Bastion off the face of the earth, or at least the comic panel. Now you would have thought it might be difficult for Bastion to come back from that. Well, to use a classic internet phrase, actually it was super easy. Barely an inconvenience. You see, at the moment of the blast, Bastion was able to activate his temporal drives and catapult himself into the future, thus avoiding the wrath of Hope Summers. So nice little escape plan. So wrapping up Bastion's story, at least for now, and there's a whole bunch of time travel involved because ain't that always the case, he has some adventures with the time-displaced X-Men. That was actually quite a cool little arc. This was set at a time when the mutant race was still really endangered, and he actually reprogrammed his Sentinels to protect the mutants. And you can't help but think, wait, hang on, what is the end game here? And the end game is that he was only doing it, playing the long game, to help bring up the mutant population to a level at which he could just exterminate them outright all in one go. It's kind of a long way to go around the houses, but I guess it's all about the journey, not the destination. Ultimately, though, that plan is foiled. Now, in one of his more recent schemes, Bastion was involved in the whole Hydra takeover of the USA when it was revealed that Captain America had been a sleeper agent the whole time. That was actually a lot of fun. Kind of bonkers, but hey, everything gets reset eventually. Now, during this time, the mutant population was given their own area in which to live, and Bastion had a team of mutants working with him. Again, you're thinking, what's going on here? We had Emma Frost, Havoc, and Miss Sinister, and they create the Mother Vine virus, which is essentially a way of creating mutants. But of course, like anything, there's always a catch. Once the Mother Vine virus was released worldwide, it was revealed that actually it can also be used to control the mutants that it creates. So yay, powers, but also slavery and subjugation. Not a good look. And Emma Frost is like, okay, you know what, guys? I'm kind of a baddie, but that's bang out of order. Ultimately, as these things always do, it comes down to a huge big bust-up between Bastion's group and the X-Men. And finally, the one who actually takes out Bastion is Zorn, who's a character I'm not that familiar with, except for the fact that he has a black hole in his head. And to destroy Bastion, he literally just opens up his head and blasts him with the power of a black hole. And no future time jumps to get a get-out-of-jail-free card on this one. Bastion is pretty much vaporized. For now. And folks, that does it for my little historical review of Bastion. What do you think about the character? Comment below, let me know. And more importantly, and this is almost a rhetorical question, are you enjoying X-Men 97 and his appearance in that? Because, oh my goodness, that show just keeps raising the bar, baby. And this is why I made this video now, because I was watching the last episode and I thought, I gotta talk about Bastion. And more to the point, I got to do some research on Bastion because this guy's history is convoluted, to say the least. But gang, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, then if you give a little like, that would be great. I hate doing this thing. It always makes me feel so awkward. But yeah, if you could smash that like button, as all YouTubers say, that would be awesome. And if you want to doubly support the channel, then you can do by getting a YouTube channel membership, just like all the awesome good brothers and sisters who are rolling up the screen right now. If you get a YouTube channel membership, then you can join in the conversation when we have the live streams. You can message me directly. You can request videos. It's a whole good time. So gang, thank you so much for watching. Thank you everyone who is a channel member, because you're helping me keep the lights on and spend more time making videos. And until next time, keep displaying model behavior.